Hey folks, thanks for joining me for another episode from the EmbellishPod. If you got here by chance, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Hopefully I can be found on any podcasting platform that exists, and if you can't find me on a platform, send me an email at embellishpod@gmail.com and I'll get that taken care of. You can also find video versions of this podcast on YouTube. You can find all of my links on Instagram at EmbellishPod or TikTok with the same handle. I have a website. It is www.embellishpod.com. It's a place to pick up these links, episode details, and more. This week, we're going to be talking to Dave from BBQ and Barrels, an event that is hosted in Owensboro, Kentucky. The tickets are on sale right now. And before you even get into the episode, you might want to go ahead and hop over to their website and buy a ticket because they're pretty limited and they're already selling through. And they haven't started their heavy advertising push for it. And so you want to get in ahead of that and then come back and listen to the rest of the conversation that Dave and I have. This morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever you happen to be consuming this, I've got Dave joining me from BBQ and Barrels in Owensboro, Kentucky, which is, I'm a little, I love talking about this, but I also don't because it's like one of these events that I really like going to, but I also don't want to get overwhelmed by a whole bunch of people all at one time, right? Because it's a great event to attend, but want to give you a chance. Let's start talking about BBQ and Barrels for 2025. First thing, let's do the time and the details and dates
Sure.
and all of that right up front.
Yeah, so BBQ and Barrels, for years Owensboro had the barbecue festival, and what we saw is we were losing, some of those barbecue vendors because those churches and folks get older, and so we were trying to breathe new life into this. But it's always the second weekend in May. It's always May 9th and May 10th. That's a Friday and Saturday. And it's really like a bunch of stuff into one, right? So like
Mhm.
there's a bourbon side of things. And then there's a barbecue side of things, and the two definitely, are intermingled. On the Friday at noon is when the event officially kicks off, where you can go downtown and the smoke's rolling with the big burgoo kettles and the big pits, and they're cooking mutton and chicken
Mhm.
and burgoo and ribs, and I mean any barbecue thing that your heart desires, that's going on. That Friday night is the first official bourbon event as far as ticketed through us. Now, there is a really high class dinner, I should say, at Lure, where they do, I think it's Smoke and Oak is what they call it. I believe it's the BTAC lineup this year with really high end food. You can go to that directly, very limited seating. They only have like 30 seats for it. That's at Lure Seafood and Grill. You can call the restaurant directly to book that. But we officially kick off that Friday night at Green River Distilling Company with a cocktail and food pairing. This year will be done by the Miller House, which is a very famous Southern dining restaurant with one of the best bourbon bars in America
Mhm.
in the basement. So we'll have that on Friday night. Those tickets run for 145 a piece, but again, that's multiple cocktails, multiple dinner items, appetizers, main course, dessert, all that kind of fun stuff. That's 6 o'clock Central Time on Friday the 9th. And then we kick off more barbecue the next day with the backyard cook-off. You literally just walk up and down Second Street in downtown Owensboro and just take samples from everybody. It's a big competition. They're cooking to compete and win some prize money, but they let people that are walking through try some of their stuff. So that's always something that I look forward to. And then the main event kicks off with classes at the convention center from 2 to 3. There will be probably 3 different classes, $25 a piece. We haven't released exactly who's doing those, but we're working on names like Freddie Johnson with Buffalo Trace, of course,
Mhm.
Brent Elliott with Four Roses, who is an Owensboro native. And then at 3, we have the VIP hour, and that ticket runs for $120. And it's probably the best $120 a bourbon enthusiast will ever spend. And it's certainly the cheapest because we'll have nearly 40 brands bringing special stuff, anything ranging from a single barrel. I know last year, Maker's Mark wanted to show off a little bit, and they brought out all their cellar age stuff. I know Augusta, they brought out an 11-year aged. I mean, it's
Mhm.
some special stuff. So and there's also food. So we have Moonlight Barbecue as our featured barbecue restaurant this year. They'll be selling a bourbon sauce that they'll create. And they'll, of course, be using some of their barbecue and some of the past appetizers that we have. Heavy hors d'oeuvres, so certainly you can get full. But again, if you don't get full, you can always step outside the convention center, and there'll be probably close to 30 different food options, food vendors selling every barbecue under the sun. 4 to 6 on Saturday is the main event, and of course, VIP get into that as well. And that ticket this year For $70, you're going to get to try probably over 40 brands, and most of those brands bring more than one thing. So lots to do, lots to see, and as we call it, it's really the best value in bourbon.
Mhm.
You are somebody that wants to try a bunch of different things for those price points. You can't beat us.
It, without a doubt, right? And so I had the great opportunity to attend last year, and I do want to go backwards a little bit, and we'll start back with the spirited dinner because that's the first thing that sort of happens for the bourbon side of this. Obviously, there's more, and we'll get to talking about the music and the carnival and the crafts and all of. There's a lot of things happening. It's
Yeah, like
it's
I said,
it's honestly,
it's like 8 things at once. Like you got to be in
yeah.
Owensboro that weekend.
If you've got ADHD, it's the perfect thing for you because you can hop from one thing to the next, right? Like you can skip your meds that weekend and still have a great time. Because it worked well for me. But the spirited pairing, and you mentioned, it does feel like $145 feels like a lot of money, especially in today's economy. But to give it a little bit of context, this is not you go and you sit down for 45 minutes and you have your meal and you walk out, right? So
Yeah, yeah, it is. The appetizers. Yeah, it's a 2 hour kind of deal. It's an event. There's a lot of
Mhm.
music. Like it's not just a like you run through it real fast. Give you a little sample of that menu. I mean, for the appetizer, heck, some of the stuff I can't even pronounce. It sounds so wonderful. Some Burdetts, if that's the way you pronounce it. Green Goddess, soft cheese, grilled
Mhm.
baguette, flatbread, cocktail pairing of a neat pour of Green River foolproof whiskey. So again, it's not your standard stuff. They're bringing out
Right.
even more special stuff for some of the cocktails and such. Kentucky bib lettuce, strawberries, radish, almonds, a honey lemon vinaigrette, perfectly paired with a Gold Rush, which they'll be using their Green River wheated whiskey
Mhm.
for that. All handcrafted cocktails. Main course, bourbon braised beef short ribs, seared sea bass. I mean, again, this is a high end, and it's a treat. I should say
Yeah.
that this is not something you probably are going to do every weekend. If you
Mhm.
are, what are you doing for a living? Let me know.
Right. And are you hiring? Right? Like, are you hiring?
It is a treat.
Mhm.
Croissant, bread pudding, salted bourbon caramel, candied pecans with the revolver, Green River
Mhm.
whiskey, Kahlua coffee liqueur, and orange bitters. I'm salivating right now. I mean, I don't know why we're doing this at lunchtime, John, but you know,
It's really bad timing because I
yeah. So,
haven't eaten either.
and again, we'll have music. Well, Green
Mhm.
River, I should say, we'll have music with that.
Mhm.
Awesome venue. It's their old bottling house, which is their event center. So it's really hard to beat a more authentic bourbon experience than that.
Without a doubt, and the meal that we had last year was absolutely phenomenal. I've had an opportunity to eat at a lot of places and try a lot of different things, and it was
Yeah.
definitely a super honestly, I felt underdressed for the event because, the meal was way classier than I was dressed for. It
That's
was
all right. That's all right.
it
Everybody's welcome. Just make sure you
right.
got your shirt on, and you'll be welcome
Mhm.
at our table.
Yeah, and I think they even had the opportunity to open up the gift shop last year. They opened it up so people could sneak in and buy
And you
something if
never
they
know
wanted to,
what
a little
they're gonna post
souvenir.
in that gift shop during that event.
Green River treats people very, very well,
They do.
and their cocktail pairings with and that's the wonderful part about it, I think, right? Because you show up to these things, and usually you're going to bring a spouse with you or a friend, maybe somebody that's not into whiskey at the same level you are. They do a really or did last year, and I assume next year, this year will be the exact same
Yeah.
thing. The pairing of the cocktail to the meal was phenomenal, and then there was a cash bar over to the side where you could buy other cocktails that may not were. A lot of people like an old fashioned, and I don't think last year that it was one of the pairings, but it was something you could buy from the
It is
bar.
this year. So, but
Yeah,
hey, why not? You know what's better than one old fashioned? Two old
three.
fashions. So, or three, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, it's certainly. And I will tell people too for that event, if you plan on drinking everything, these are full pours. So
Yes.
please, please, please have a sober driver, have somebody that
Mhm.
drink a little less, have a plan to get home. We have Uber, we have Lyft. If you're staying at one of our downtown hotels, you're literally only a couple minutes away from
Yep.
downtown. So that's just something, be responsible because it is a very fun event. But also, if you
Mhm.
choose to partake in everything offered, have a plan to get home.
Yeah, I had a ride last year, but 100% would have needed an Uber or a Lyft to get back because they are and it is it is over a couple of hours. But if you come in early and you have a cocktail before the food service begins, and then you have the
Yeah.
three that are paired, you're now like four drinks deep in 2 hours. and you're enjoying yourself, right? Because there's music, there's
Yep.
interaction with the other folks. You end up it feels sort of sometimes, unless you buy a whole table yourself, but it feels sort of like a cruise where you get to meet people
That's exactly
from
what it is.
different parts of life. That our table
It
was
is.
super interesting.
It's usually like an 8-seater, right? So,
Hmm.
unless you buy an entire table,
Right.
you're gonna be paired with maybe somebody you don't know,
Hmm.
which is so fun, just
Yep.
because you get to meet 'em, and find out why they're there, where they're from. I
Hmm.
mean, we had people at that dinner, they were from as far away as California.
Yeah.
You just never know who you'll meet there.
Yeah, and the whiskey nerds, when they sit down, they start kind of feeling each other out, like, okay, what's your knowledge level? What's your knowledge level? But by the end of the meal, it's just it's a few friends having a wonderful meal together.
Yep.
I can't emphasize enough. I think that if somebody's watching this and you're considering coming, if you can swing it, do it, right, because it's a
Right.
phenomenal meal with a phenomenal experience. You're on site at one of the best growing distilleries in the state of Kentucky that's making some of the best whiskey that you can buy at some of the best price points, right? That's the other side of it, is that they're
I
not.
will I will stand on this mountain and on this ground, as a Kentuckian would say, like, what Green River offers at the
Hmm.
price point they're offering it at, it's just ridiculous, like, to say that anybody has a better price point
Right.
at that age, at that quality. I mean, they're foolproof. Gosh, I don't know what it is right now, maybe $40 or something, maybe a little
Hmm.
north of that. You're just not gonna get a better quality bourbon than that at that price point, and I will argue that, for as
It's
long
not
as
a hard argument to make, right? It's really not a hard argument to make because they're competing at a price point that everyone else is $20 higher for the same things that they're doing,
that's
if
right.
not more.
Yep.
So
So, yeah, and the fun doesn't start there, or doesn't stop there, I should say.
Mhm,
After that, you kinda mentioned it, this is a whole weekend. So,
mhm,
you finish up around 8, you get your ride back to downtown, and we have an amazing Journey cover band right there in
mhm,
downtown, right in front of the convention center, booked that night. They are phenomenal. I've personally seen them, and they're very, very good. So,
mhm.
maybe if you're traveling from outside, or if you're inside, pack your lawn chair,
Right.
because everything's free as far as the music,
Mhm.
which is another added value, to come to Owensboro that weekend. So, if at 8 o'clock you're like, no, I need more, you can go right there downtown, right in front of the convention center, pack your chair down there, and enjoy an amazing Journey band for no cost at all.
Yeah, and luckily the hotel I was at was right next to the event, and so I was able to listen and then walk back to the hotel and still hear it for a little while. I think it ran until maybe 9 or 10 o'clock.
Yeah, not too late, because we know we've
Yeah.
got a long Saturday, so
Oh
we don't
yeah,
want
100
people like,
100%. But it wasn't too late, and it was a friendly event, right? Where after you go from sitting down with some strangers, now you're sitting down with another different batch of strangers, but um, it's a very backyard feel, and I don't know if that sounds bad or not, but it
no, I
sounds
think I think,
community.
and that's with barbecue and barrels, like, it's very informal,
Mhm.
right? So, like, there are very classy events where, like, you better have on, like, a suit jacket, right?
Right.
This is one of those things that it creates such intermingling between
Mhm.
people of all walks of life, serious whiskey folks and people that maybe have tried it for the first time, and some people that are just down there for the barbecue and music. And
Mhm.
I think that's what kinda it truly is a culinary event with entertainment, you know what I mean? So,
Yep.
there's a little bit of something for everybody. That's what makes it also very family friendly. Obviously, you're not gonna take your family if they're under 21 to the dinner or to the bourbon side of things.
Right.
We have a carnival for little kids. I've got a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-month-old, and we have something for them as well. Now,
Mhm.
Daddy will be away for the bourbon side of things.
Right.
Make your arrangements,
Yep.
but that's something that I think makes this a little unique. Whereas,
Mhm.
like the other different bourbon events and festivals, usually it's just the bourbon, right?
Yeah.
This has a little bit of everything.
Yeah, for sure. And so, we've had dinner. We've come and listened to some fantastic music. We go to bed. Drink a bunch of water, go to bed.
Yep.
Get up in the morning. What time do things normally kick off on Saturday morning? Because I think there's a moderately early morning event that
Yeah,
happens the next day.
like 10 o'clock is kind of when they really start cooking, and
Mhm.
then samples start being made available. So picture, you're going down Second Street in downtown Owensboro. As you're walking down the street, I want to paint a picture for you. So closer to our office, we're under the Blue Bridge. Everybody knows the Blue Bridge in Owensboro, right? You have a kiddie carnival, right? These are smaller kids. It's a really nice carnival too. We're not, it's not one of those things that you're looking at the rides going, I don't know about that. Like it's a really
Right.
nice kiddie carnival. You start walking down, and that's when the smoke kind of fills the air and you can smell the barbecue. Like I said, we'll probably have 30 different vendors, and we still have several of those church teams.
Mhm.
That's some of my favorite stuff. That's what I grew up with. Like, I want them to scoop the burgoo out of the kettle and put it in my little styrofoam cup and eat it, and it's 80 degrees outside. That's like
Right.
tradition for me, right? We'll have craft vendors. We'll probably have, I don't know, at least probably 20, probably more craft vendors. So if that's
Mhm.
your thing, there'll be different drink vendors. Let's say bourbon's not your thing, or you want a lemonade, or you want a beer. We'll have all of that. Some of the distilleries will have their cocktail trucks out. So even if and I encourage everyone to buy a ticket for our event actually at the convention center. But there's
Mhm.
options to do that. There's going to be live music constantly throughout the downtown throughout the day. Um, and so you're getting to try all these different things. And then at 2 o'clock, that's when classes start. And I
Mhm.
mean, the classes, we've got them priced probably low, but again, I like to offer an experience that comes very approachable for people. So 25 bucks. Again, we'll have three different probably class options. Those will be at the convention center from 2 to 3. To attend a class, you do have to purchase a VIP or general admission ticket. So like you
Mhm.
can't just go to a class. You do have to do that. Um, we'll release usually the beginning of April what exactly those are going to be. But they're typically a class with a master distiller,
Mhm.
a master mixologist, something that you can't normally find. And the time that you get with these people in a room of usually 30 to 35, you're not going to get that normally.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and did you attend one of the classes last year, John?
I did. The one that Evan Williams micro distillery hosted, and I'm trying to draw his name up right off.
Jody.
Jody, yes, because he's going to be in Paducah tonight.
Yeah.
He ran it through, and honestly, he did maybe 10 or 15 minutes worth of the scripted. I'm running a class thing, and he was like, "All right, now let's just talk," right? And it
Let's drink
became
bourbon
more
and
of a
talk.
yeah, and it became very much that, and there was a lot of you could tell the variance of people that were in there from whiskey nerd to I'm brand new to it, but there was no real like air of superiority. It was just like, all right, we're all just sitting here gonna talk about
Yeah, I
things
mean, that
together.
personal experience that you're getting with
Mhm.
with a master distiller. I mean, he
Yeah,
makes
and
all
it
the
is
bourbon
underpriced.
at Evan
100% it is underpriced at
Yeah, I
$25.
mean, he makes all the bourbon at the Evan Williams Bourbon Experience downtown
Mhm.
Louisville, and you're sitting there, you look at the awards that Heaven Hill has won in the last couple of years, like, he
Yep.
made a lot of that.
Yeah.
So it's just again, it's very valuable time, that you
Mhm.
get. And then, we have the VIP. VIP comes in at 120 bucks, which is still way, way, way lower, than
Mhm.
anybody else's VIP ticket that I'm aware of. I don't know anybody that's even in that. Usually you're looking at 300 bucks and above
Yep.
for the same experience. And so what that looks like is you get an hour access early, to the actual bourbon tasting, and we ask all the distilleries, hey, this is the time to show off a little bit, right? These are
Mhm.
usually pretty good bourbon enthusiasts that want a little something different. So you're going to see barrel picks and some pretty high value stuff with a little bit more age on it. And in some cases, some more experimental stuff, that people sometimes don't even have on the shelves. And some distilleries, believe it or not, Western Kentucky Distilling, they made their debut. That was the
Yep.
first time that you publicly could try their bourbon was at that experience. So, uh, we like to give that experience to people, and then we're Moonlight Barbecue. Like I said, is we'll have some of their barbecue with the past apps, so you're getting that authentic bourbon experience, obviously, and barbecue experience that Owensboro is
Mhm.
known for.
So, and you mentioned there's some single barrels that are available at the event, whether it be to try or to potentially purchase. I assume
Right.
purchasing is
Yeah,
still an
we
opportunity.
do allow, transaction right at the booth.
Mhm.
So, let's say you try something, you see that bottle, hey, guess what? That's for
Mhm.
sale. Not all of them. I'm not saying you're gonna get, some of the really high-end stuff that they're showing off a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of the distilleries, heck, I would probably say 70%, wouldn't you say, something like that,
Yeah.
are, making their bottles available for purchase too. So that makes it kind of unique in the fact that, uh, you can try it, and if you like it, you can. And the VIP, you get first dibs at
Right.
those because they don't bring enough for everybody to buy. You wouldn't, because of the weight of the things. But that ticket gets you in there an hour early, and
Mhm.
so that kind of guarantees you a prime selection of some pretty high end stuff.
So I know, and I think this was the case last year. Well, I know this was the case last year. I'm wondering, for the VIP experience, if I remember correctly, the Riverview room was still available once general admission started, where you could kind of, step into there for a minute. Is that going to be a thing again this year?
That'll be a thing. Like, yeah, there's couches and stuff in there.
Mhm.
It overlooks the water. I think, and I'm gonna say this, I think we have probably the best venue when it comes to weather, when it comes to
Right.
view for bourbon experience because we're inside a convention center. But our convention center, the back side of it, the room that this is actually in, the ballroom, I mean, it's floor to ceiling windows. You're overlooking the Ohio River. The time of the year is May, so everything is in bloom.
Hmm.
You have the water you're looking at. You look out, you see the rest of the festival experience. You have air conditioned bathrooms. I know that sounds silly, but it's just nice that there's
No,
plenty.
it makes a big difference. It
Yeah,
really makes a big difference.
distilleries, they get to load right in, and
Hmm.
guess what? We're weatherproof. You don't have
Right.
to worry about rain, and so you're going to get to have. Though we were blessed with very probably the best weather I've ever seen last year.
Right.
It was incredible. It was like 74 and sunny Friday and Saturday. So knock
Hmm.
on wood, we get that again. But
Yeah.
on the urban side of things, you're inside. So you don't have to worry, oh, will it be canceled? Will somebody not show up? I mean, we
Mhm.
are a weatherproof experience, so that makes it kind of special.
Without a doubt. And so I think in if I remember looking at the website for the VIP experience, there's not many of those left, right? So when you go to the ticket purchase side,
Right.
and it's got the night mini left, which is an automated thing, which means if you're interested in that, now is the time to purchase.
There are essentially 230 tickets for purchase. Most of those are gone. There still are some. Um, yeah, if you want to do that, like you would, even though we're still 2 months away from this thing,
Mhm,
you want to go ahead and get that now because those will be gone soon. We haven't done a lot of advertising yet. And so once that starts, those things are going to go quick. So I would highly advise if you're on the fence, like now would be the time to jump it
mhm.
and make those purchases for VIP.
Now, I have another question, and you may have an answer, you may not have an answer. So, you mentioned the classes that you have to have a VIP or a general admission ticket, but the with the purchase of a VIP or general admission, you also could get a companion ticket, right?
That's
Can a
right.
companion attend a class, or is that still just sticking with the VIP or the
Well, I'm not sure that a companion would want to because the companions, you're not drinking bourbon.
right?
The companion, you don't, there's still a cash bar,
Hmm.
at the convention center. So let's say you're more of a wine or a beer person, or maybe you're like, man, I've had enough bourbon.
Yeah.
Uh, we all do offer that. Or maybe you're not a drinker and you just want to
Hmm.
see and have that experience. I mean, so many people go on bourbon tours at these distilleries and don't drink at all. It's just
Right.
a really neat manufacturing experience. So we
Hmm.
do offer that. Yeah, I guess technically you could, but I'm not sure that you'd want to pay that extra when
Hmm.
you don't drink bourbon because they are bourbon experiences.
Right.
But yeah, the companion ticket, $20 can be purchased with any general admission or VIP ticket.
Okay. Yeah, and because there is this group of people that they might be okay with sitting in on a class. They want to taste through with the distiller, and then when they go to the main event, they're like, I just want to drink a cocktail, or I don't want to drink at all. That's my only drinking is going to be the class, and I sort of wondered that.
Yeah,
So
we'll
you
allow
mentioned
it. I don't think it'll be a popular
right.
route to take, but sure, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do that. That's fine.
So and you said there'll be cocktails for purchase in there, and so for the companion, at other events I've seen where you can get a ticket for the companion, but what that's really about is making sure that they have a DD. That's not necessarily the case here. The companion can still purchase cocktails; they're just not maybe a volume of bourbon consumer that warrants the purchase of a full
Correct.
ticket. They may want to
Yep.
buy a cocktail or
Yeah,
two.
you'll get a separate wristband, and so you can do it, and we definitely do have some sober drivers that do that as
Mhm.
well.
Right.
That's certainly an option too.
Yeah.
And that's why we try to keep it at just $20, right? Like we're
Yeah.
not trying to if you're not taking up the product, like we're not trying to take all your money.
Mhm. Yeah, and you mentioned food, so and you may have already covered it pretty well, but it was in the event itself. There'll be some food available. What does that look like?
Yeah, so for VIP, we have really nice appetizers, heavy hors d'oeuvres. A couple of them will feature moonlight barbecue, probably a mutton option and a pork option. But then everything's kind of barbecue themed.
Mhm.
We also have some vegetarian options because we know not everybody eats meat, but like we try to put like a barbecue play on that, like maybe like a barbecue, cauliflower or something like
Mhm.
that. I'm all about the meat that weekend. I love barbecue. I
Right.
grew up on it. Probably the first thing, probably as a baby, at 6 months old, I probably was eating chopped mutton. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't confirm that. I'm sure I could ask my dad, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty high end stuff. Brisket on a stick, like it has that kind
Mhm.
of fair kind of feel, but it's also really good barbecue.
Yeah. And the past hors d'oeuvres last year were really, really phenomenal during the VIP selection of it. And so VIPs have an opportunity to get in early, get in, taste things, maybe buy things. That may be the thing you're after is if, somebody's going to be selling a single barrel pick and you want to be able to get one, VIP is going to get first pass at that. Are you guys planning to do any specific picks? Like you guys are partnering with a distillery to do one for the event?
I'm trying to work my way into that. I've got a couple
Yeah.
of calls out for sure. That I know like Green River already told me they have a barbecue and barrels pick that they've got a honey barrel that they're
Mhm.
bringing the Ray game in their hometown. My phone must have been broken when they did that because I didn't, or maybe it was the experts. Probably
Right.
it was Aaron and some of
Mhm.
their the head distiller there that have the little
Mhm.
more refined taste obviously than I do.
Right.
But certainly, I think you'll see some barrel picks, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna try to get on as many of those as I
Yeah. I mean, if you're not able to make one,
can.
I'm just down the road. Let me
Yeah,
know. I'm more
just
than
down there,
willing
yeah,
to
not too far.
more than willing to step in for you. So
Thanks for taking that bullet for me, John.
you know, what are friends for, right? So we've gone through. We've finished VIP. We've finished the general admission portion of it, and I'll tell people, sometimes you get in, you say, I want to get in early. I want to try a few things. Make sure I can get it before it's gone. Some of the distillers and distilleries, they had a few things that were just sort of lingering around. If you were hanging around at the end of the event, there's a few unique things that popped out, at least while I was there. And they may not have been directly bourbon. I think we had a really unique gin that someone pulled out from behind the counter.
Yeah,
Pay attention, right? So you don't want to necessarily load it all on the front end and make sure you kind of get around. They're pretty good. These distillers and distilleries have been through these events before, and so they know how to pace themselves and make sure they've got something else unique to sort of bring out. Because what you end up seeing is you see a whole bunch of people swarm the Michter's table as soon as they bring out the toasted bourbon, right? Because toasted, I can't find it anywhere else.
right.
But behind the toasted could be a 10-year, right? And so you've swarmed it at the toasted, and now the 10-year sneaks out. I'm not saying that's what happened or will happen, but those are the type of things that occur.
Yeah, I think, distilleries are smart. They do a
Mhm.
lot of these. They want to, not show all their tricks at once,
Right.
and, keep that flow kind of consistent throughout the
Mhm.
entire time, so and what I would tell people too is, we'll have a lot of the big dogs, right?
Yep.
Like, we'll have Maker's Mark, um, we'll have Wilderness Trail, but, like, don't sleep on some of the smaller brands, because they're putting out some really good stuff, and a lot of those smaller brands too are sourcing some old stuff. And
Right.
so, I would encourage you, yeah, go see your favorites, of course,
Mhm.
but also try something new because you're not going to be able to try everything, right? In a 3 hour for VIP, 2 hour for general admission, like you do have to make some selections, and you should make some selections. That you don't need to. In fact, don't try them all.
Don't drink all 40. That is not the right choice.
Yeah, and our distilleries are really good about like monitoring that, and like
Mhm.
we have little punch cards to
Yep.
follow so that people aren't being overserved and that sort of thing. And we
Mhm.
also have pretzel and water stations, which I think is very vital to have something on your belly.
Yep.
A million barbecue options outside of the
Mhm.
convention center, so load in on the front end and then go get you something after too. So general admission that will start at 4 and that runs till 6. That's a $70 ticket.
Mhm.
Again, general admission over 40 brands. You do the math. If what you're getting per price is can be like $2 per
Right.
pour, which find me a bar in America that you can do that.
And
Uh,
especially at the level of the pours that they're having, right? You might
yeah,
be able to find a bar where you could get some bottom shelf whiskey that much for that cheap, but
that's right.
not getting this quality.
And so that's when it really gets. I mean, that it starts to pack out. Like I said, we
Mhm.
limit to about 250 VIP, then
Mhm.
500 general admission, and that's intentional too.
Mhm.
Yeah, we could open it up to more people, but we really want the people there to have a more intimate experience than some of the larger, festivals. That's kind of what our target is we want to do things the best and give you kind of as much interaction with the different distilleries as we can.
And I think you said 40 distilleries, and if I remember correctly, I think last year it was maybe 30. So did you guys expand and add a few more distilleries, or did I just miscount?
Um, we will. We'll
Okay.
and the count's not final yet, but
Yep.
we will do that. We will add more, um, each year, and, we'll know we'll know final when they show up,
Right.
but, we're already ahead of last year,
Hmm.
as far as, like, confirming a bunch of different ones, confirming some new ones, like I said, like Wilderness Trail, that's a new one,
Hmm.
um, and then, we like to offer some that maybe you haven't heard of,
Hmm.
just because you never know what, discovery you're gonna find.
Yeah. And so a distillery that wants to be a part of this event, do you guys go out and solicit them? Do they solicit you? Do you open it up? How does that work?
It's a combination, right?
Mhm.
So, some of the bigger dogs, you've gotta keep knocking on their door.
Mhm.
And we have Seth Thompson, who, of course, is the publisher and owner of the Bourbon Review,
Mhm.
Go Bourbon, and then, of course, owns Bell's there in Lexington, and also hosts the Bourbon Classic. So he is
Okay.
our bourbon purveyor, if you will. He's
Right.
got these great relationships with the distilleries, with some of his events, and has been a wonderful partner for us to have on. But we also have some that reach out and just say, "Hey, give me a shot," and
Mhm.
we try to say yes. Out of state brands a little different because they have to partner for them to sell. They don't have like typically they
Right.
don't have the DSP license, right? They're not in
Mhm.
Kentucky, so they have to partner with like a liquor store for licensing and all that because we have to be in compliance and
Right.
that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean it's kind of a combination of both. And then usually 2 weeks out we're pretty locked in of who we know is going to
Mhm.
be there, barring something happening, of course.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, most of the long lines that I saw were at the smaller, more craft type distilleries, and because you do have your favorites, you got your makers, you got your mixers, you got the big brands that are floating around in the room, but because of the way craft bourbon works and the way craft whiskey works, they can experiment and do some unique things a lot faster than a big distillery can, and so you see some really interesting things floating around at the smaller ones. Like I think Augusta was heavily hit, and Blue Run was heavily hit, and Casey Jones was heavily hit. Like the crowds sort of floated around. The lines were long at some of the heritage distilleries, but the crowds of people surrounding a booth where they're trying to talk to the distiller and do all these things was pretty significant at some of the smaller distilleries. And like I said, those are some of the best pours that are floating around there as well. Um, so we make it through the whiskey tasting. We're still upright. We've drank water. We laid a good base layer of bread before we walked in, right? And
Yep.
we step out at 6 o'clock. What's the next move for the event?
Sure. So, music, like I said, is on the front of the convention center. There's a stage set up. With there's a big grass lawn in front of it, so people already be out there and they're listening to music and they're experiencing, the barbecue side of things. And then the main events start as far as music. The main acts, I believe they start around 6. And
Mhm.
so this year, there's I believe his name is Drew Baldridge, several country hits, and then we're going 90s country. Clay Walker, and then remember, free. You literally
Mhm.
walk outside, and there's a 90s country legend who's still putting hits out. I mean, he's an
Right.
incredible artist in Clay Walker. So then you come out and you're like, well, I'm still hungry or I'm still thirsty, and then you have all that free entertainment. So I mean,
Mhm.
again, the weekend just keeps going. It is an absolute marathon of fun.
Mhm. And it's a marathon, but you're not trying to stretch it to 3 or 4 or 5 days or whatever, right?
2
Because
great days, and then again, if you do that dinner at Lure on
Mhm.
Thursday as a special treat to yourself,
Right.
it's high end, but even that, let's talk about that for a second.
Mhm.
It's $350 for a seat, but you're
Right.
getting to try every, the Eagle Rare 17,
Mhm.
all the BTAC lineup. You try it all, and then you're eating, a menu that Ben, who's the owner and chef there, is it's high end. I mean, you're
Right.
I have to look at it, but we're talking like Wagyu kind of quality stuff. So
Mhm.
when you break down, if you get a shot of, let's say say you get a shot of William LaRue Weller, okay,
Mhm.
what's that going to cost you? Well, usually over $100.
Right. I was saying from the whiskey you're drinking, you've already gotten through the 350 before you eat a bite of food, right?
Easily.
Given the whiskeys you're gonna drink will be paid for of what you would normally pay in a bar, and then you're gonna have a really, really, really nice meal on top of that.
Yeah, and again, and there's always, like, an education component,
Mhm,
of course, Ben will announce who that will be, soon, but, and there's only 30 tickets for that, and they sell out every year too, so
mhm.
and that's a special treat, I wanna emphasize that, like,
Yeah,
that's a this is a gift to myself.
right. Yeah, so you could feasibly have a weekend where you have 2 really, really phenomenal eating events, where you're eating kind of, upscale dining,
Mhm.
but having this underlayer of really phenomenal. I don't want to say normal. Normal is not the right word, but really phenomenal um, barbecue event where you get to taste through effectively history at that point, right? Because the way barbecue was made and the history of Owensboro. We were talking about Burgoo. I had the opportunity to be with our friend from Tampa. First time he ever had burgoo. Didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
He's got to do his thing and taste through it, and it's an experience for everybody.
It is, I mean, just the barbecue alone that you get to try, and, mutton is definitely what Owensboro is known for. That's
Hmm.
Western Kentucky and burgoo. But, like, there's chicken, there's
Yep.
brisket, there's pulled pork sandwiches, so there's a little bit of familiarity too.
Hmm.
There are food, and barbecue vendors that literally come in from all over the US for this thing, in addition to our churches that are there,
Yeah.
doing their thing, which again, that's you gotta try those because that's what made
Hmm.
this thing such a big deal in the first place. Um, so, there is no short of different culinary experiences that you can have that weekend.
Hmm. Now, the less culinary conversation, more, kind of event based. If a person were so motivated, there's also an event like first thing Saturday morning if you want to get up early and go run, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's the, barbecue 5K. So those of you that are runners and you're like, "Man, if I'm gonna eat all day, I've gotta run this thing out first and get
Mhm,
what was ever in my body on Friday night out." Yeah, there's a 5K,
mhm.
that going on that weekend as well. There's also, I don't know the finalized plans, but there's also a golf outing, Friday morning that's new this year, that's gonna have a bourbon and barbecue kinda twist at the country club. It's gonna be a fundraiser, for a local company in town. More details to come on that soon. But yeah, I mean, the whole weekend is just one weekend of fun. It can be family friendly. It can be a date. It can be a present to yourself. There can be a friend trip. I mean, there's just so many different options out there for barbecue and barrels.
Yeah, and so now you've made this event where you can be both healthy, you can go play golf, you can drink whiskey. If I remember correctly, one of the vendors was selling hand rolled cigars, and so you're like
Yeah,
you're ticking all the boxes of the traditional whiskey drinker, right? Between smoked meats and cigars and golf and fine dining and still having some just like normal down to earth barbecue event. Like this is end to end a really phenomenal event for me, and I know it almost sounds like I'm trying to market it here. I went to the thing and it was a hell of a time for me. And I'll have this is my own only personal tip that I'll add in here. At the spirited dinner, Karen from Green River, we were talking about eating dinner and getting up in the morning eating breakfast, and she was like, "Hey, in the morning you should go get some Gramps coffee and donuts. Right, the donuts at Gramps, walkable from the hotel, perfect choice. It was phenomenal. So, anybody who watches this, if you go to the
Owensboro, I
Green,
mean, we're a foodie town, man. I mean,
it really is. It's a thing that is
there's so
developed.
many good local restaurants. We just came off Burger Week, so different communities do Burger Week.
Right.
John, we had 49 restaurants, pretty much all local except,
Mhm.
2, right, that did Burger Week. So, um, there was over $500,000 of burgers sold. I
Phew.
mean, it was incredible. It was so
Right.
much. 63,000 burgers. The population of Owensboro is 60,000, so think about
Right.
that for a second. But yeah, there's so many good local spots
Mhm.
downtown. There's different, boutiques and antique
Mhm.
shops, that you can hit up in the morning. The coffee shop, Scramps Donuts, is amazing. It's the only place in the world that the donuts and coffee are equally as good. That's the
Right.
and, I mean, usually the coffee shop has terrible donuts or the donut shop has terrible coffee. They have both wonderful things. Love
I was unsure, and I trust Karen because she travels a lot, right?
Yeah,
And so she's eaten at a lot of different places. She's like, "Yeah, this is where you go in the morning." I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go in the morning,
yeah,
and I'm gonna be quiet about it because you don't want somebody to give you a recommendation. You're like, that was sort of bad. Nope, she was right.
great
She was
stuff.
right.
Yeah, a little sweet treat. What else is down there? Red Swing's great. Crim's
Mhm.
great. If you want to see the rest of town, I mean, there's all kinds of different local
Yeah.
things that you can check out outside. Because really, your traditional festival is kind of a 10 to 10, right?
Mhm.
So before 10, I'm a morning person. I'd love to watch sunrise. Like, there's so many things you can do even before the official fun starts.
Right. And honestly, the other side of it is being at an event from 10 to 10, unless you're even when you're working it, is exhausting. And so you may want to plan something else, up until lunchtime, right? And so you guys have websites that we can go to learn about it. That's right.
Yeah,
Like,
barbecueandbarrels.com.
mhm.
You're gonna see the bourbon section under there, barbecue events. It's kind of a full calendar of kind of how to plan your day, and your evening, who's performing and when they're performing. It's got the full schedule. I believe there's a map on there too, so you can it might not quite be ready yet because, again, we're only in March. Feels like this year's already flown by, but that
Right.
way you gotta see, like, where the different things are and that sort of thing.
Mhm. Now, this is a question that I have just based off of maybe something recent that I've observed. Kind of coming into Owensboro, especially if you're coming in during the event, you need to plan ahead, right? Because certain streets are going to be blocked off. And if you're trying to get to one of the hotels that's sort of behind the event, you need to make sure how you get in and out. But as far as parking, what is the situation in parking in Owensboro this year?
Sure. So there are parking garages available.
Hmm.
We have 2 downtown, they're both accessible. If you're coming from out of town though, like, if you haven't booked your hotel yet, like, I would do that within the next, like, day or 2. We have 2 downtown hotels. The 3rd one will open, in June, early July. So it's not quite open yet, but, the Hampton or the Holiday downtown, what I would recommend is staying at one of those because then you have your parking spot. It's all surface
Yep.
parking at those hotels. Essentially, then, I mean, you don't have to get back in your car. So if you're coming from out of town, I would definitely recommend that. There are street parking availability, limited, but there are some. And then again, we have got parking garages. But the best thing you can do is book a room downtown. We have a lot of locals that do that during this as well
Hmm.
because they don't want to deal with the hassle of getting in and out of their car. So just booking a
Right.
room, and what's kind of cool is, we house a lot of the distilleries like in those hotels. So
Hmm.
you never know when you wake up on Saturday morning to go get breakfast if you're gonna be sitting next to Brent Elliott or you're gonna be, so that's kind of a little bit of, hidden nostalgia too is, we a lot of the people that are helping us put this thing on are in those hotels as well.
Yeah, and the main reason I asked about parking is I was in Owensboro like a month ago, staying downtown, and I think there was one parking garage before. The second one just recently opened. Is that right? Since the
Yeah,
last year's
the one
event?
across the convention center just opened,
Hmm.
and then there'll be a parking garage on the back side of the 3rd hotel. So we'll have 3 parking garages come
Right.
July and August. Yeah, downtown, I mean, Owensboro, growing up here, the last 10 years, I mean, you see cranes in downtown like
Yeah.
every day. And like that's just for a city our size because they're just constantly building stuff, which is
Mhm.
awesome. Does create a little bit of parking situations and that sort of thing. But man, that's what you want. You want your
Yeah,
city to be moving. You want things to be, being built. So
for sure, for sure. Um, I I'm trying to think. I had another question in my head and I lost it. I completely lost it. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should have talked about that I've missed so far?
no, I mean, it's just gonna be a fantastic weekend,
Mhm.
of barbecue and barrels, of trying fun, unique offerings of bourbon and cocktails and food, and, if you're not into the bourbon side of things, I mean, gosh, bring your kids, do the barbecue and the free music and the fair side of things. There's just so many different options in a weekend just packed with fun.
Yeah, and I think that jogged my brain a little bit. A couple of things that I noticed from last year. If you have distilleries that you're into, you pay attention to them because sometimes they might have an off-site event on Friday or
Mhm.
hanging out or whatever. But you mentioned they're staying here. Like all of these distilleries that are coming in, for the most part, are staying in the hotels in and around Owensboro. Um, there's a chance that somebody may end up sitting at a table outside of a hotel, sharing bottles, having an opportunity to extend some of the fun that you might have. Not necessarily advocating for just drinking openly in the streets, but I did see several people. They're like, "Hey, let's hang out after the event is over,"
Yeah,
and everybody brings something.
bottle shares definitely pop up, from
Mhm.
the different folks that are in town. Different distilleries will have pop-up events. I don't know officially yet which ones those
Right.
will be. I have been reached out to by a couple of our local bars and stuff saying, "Hey,
Mhm.
we've got Maker's Mark that wants, and so yeah,
Yep.
there is no shortage of different unique opportunities to have bourbon interaction with the experts.
Yeah, and I guess one last thing before I'll stop bothering you. Make sure you go sign up for any email newsletters that are available, because that's likely where this information comes in through. I am aware of a lot of the stuff because I signed up last year and was like, hey, I want to pay attention to what's happening with the event.
So our newsletter at Visit Owensboro will start to push things out,
Mhm.
in March for the specific event to remind you to get your tickets.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you purchased tickets last year, you're going to get OwensboroTickets.com, which is run through our convention center, is going to start sending you reminders. All of our advertising will hit Bourbon Review this week,
Mhm.
and then we'll start pushing out all kinds of digital ads and Facebook ads. So the biggest thing is BBQandBarrels.com. You can get everything that you need to know as far as information and purchase your tickets right through there.
Cool. All right, Dave, thank you so much for your time. I think we've covered everything that we need to cover. If anything comes up between now and then, you're more than welcome to come back on and we'll talk about whatever else needs to be added to the list. Congratulations on 24's phenomenal event, and you're setting some high expectations for yourself in 25, right? So you gotta
For sure.
you
Yeah,
gotta
the
meet
third
that
year
now.
is the make or break year, right? So that's when
Right.
you've got something successful, is if you continue growth in that third year. So
Yeah.
we're hoping that will be the case. We're doing everything we can. Like I
Mhm.
said, we just wrapped up our burger week. So now for the next 2 months, I'm thinking about barbecue and barrels. We'll just do fun things to think about.
Right.
So
What a terrible job to have to think about burgers, barbecue, and whiskey. It's
yeah,
just the worst, right?
I made a very good career choice. Working in hospitality,
Mhm.
one of the most rewarding things that you can do, because you're creating experiences for people.
Right.
I love hearing the feedback. Just like you shared, like what a great weekend, I wouldn't miss it.
Mhm.
And that's what it's all about. Is life is meant to be experienced, and we
Mhm.
certainly think the barbecue and barrels is one you shouldn't miss out on.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Dave, so much.
Yep. See you soon, John.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode from the Embellish Pod. If you enjoyed this, please leave me a review on whatever platform that you're consuming this on and leave a comment if possible. Hit me up on social media on TikTok or Instagram using EmbellishPod and give me a follow so you can keep up with what's going on here. I can be found at www.embellishpod.com with all of my links, accounts, contact details, and more. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, and maybe with a little bit of luck, we can hit the exact same weekend when the Aurora Borealis is popping up again over the river, right? That happened last year if you used your phone.
Yeah, I forgot about that, but better to be lucky than good.
Right, right. We'll take it all day long. I know, because my wife wasn't able to make it because our school year got delayed because of a bunch of snow last year, and so she wasn't able to make the trip up with me. And she was like, "Hey, go outside," and I didn't realize I was supposed to have my
Kinda
phone up. And she was like,
Yeah,
"It's
that's
out there," and I'm
what
like, "I
we did.
can't see it,"
Yeah,
but it
we
was
had
that weekend.
perfect weather and the northern lights.
Yep, for sure.